It's not exactly a secret that most booktubers adore autumn. At least everyone I follow seems to. There's just something about the season that inspires us as readers. The season is inspiring in general, with the gorgeous foliage, the brisk days, and the sense of change. But why is autumn, even more so than Christmas, so celebrated on BookTube? While I can't speak for other creators, I do have my own reasons for loving the season, not only in its own right, but as a vehicle for reading more and finding books I love. Whether or not I shared it on here, I've long read books in a seasonal pattern, putting together TBRs centered around the autumnal, the spooky, or the moody. I've even put thought into November, a tough month for many, placing an emphasis on books that are bleak, dreary, or disturbing in tone. For example, I have Flowers in the Attic on my November list, because while it doesn't scream Halloween to me, it's a disturbing, depressing novel which matches the month best known for brown leaves and gray skies. Autumn is my favorite season, which I've discussed on this channel previously. But here are the 6 reasons I love it as a reader. This one is pretty obvious, but part of why I read so much in autumn is because of how the weather facilitates this. When the days are still warm, I like to go outside and read because I know that such weather will soon be gone. So reading offers an excuse to take advantage and get some fresh air if I'm not in a position to actually go somewhere. It's not practical for me to take my computer outside, so that just leaves reading if I want to be out in the sunshine and the breeze. Plus, sitting outside in the summer isn't as enjoyable for me because summer usually means a burnt scalp, lots of sweating, and just a general feeling that you're being cooked. However, when the weather does turn rainy and dreary, reading remains one of the few activities available to pass the time if I don't want to vegetate in front of a screen all day. When forest walks, trips to the beach, and jaunts through the pumpkin patch are no longer feasible, reading somber, atmospheric novels allows me to relish the season, rather than resent it for keeping me inside. Plus, reading when it's yucky outside is just cozy. There are few things better than curling up under a blanket while the rain lashes the house and the wind wails, knowing you're safe and warm. Bonus points if you have a hot chocolate, some candles, and a cat to cuddle with. Some of my best memories are of either reading on a rainy day or of poking through bookstores, emerging into the wet gloom with a healthy book haul. Second, there's the fact that autumn has Halloween. Halloween's position at the end of October means readers have 2 months to psych themselves up and devour as many creepy novels as possible. Though I read multiple genres, fantasy will always be my favorite, and Halloween lends itself to the whimsical and strange. While you have your thrillers and gothics, which I also enjoy, most ostensibly spooky or autumnal novels are fantastical or supernatural. When I hear the word paranormal, my brain translates that as fantasy but creepy. Halloween is my favorite holiday, rivaled only by Christmas, but I adore both Halloween and Christmas precisely because of their focus on magic. Halloween has ghosts and skeletons, and Christmas has immortal gift givers, flying reindeer, and also ghosts again. I just love fantasy, but being possessed of a morbid streak, I also have a soft spot for the macabre. So Halloween marries my two sensibilities together. It's the one season where my childlike wonder and love of the fantastical seamlessly blends with my negative, cynical side. As such, I'm able to read the books which best complement my sensibilities. And I never fail to find a number of the year's favorites during these few months. This next point seems disconnected from reading, but hear me out. As a result of the sensibilities I mentioned during my last point, the kinds of stories I write are usually a mismatch of whimsy and cynicism. For example, the protagonist of my novels is an eccentric elf who wears ridiculous, colorful clothes and inhabits an urban fantasy world. However, he's also a major depressive who hates everybody, and the world he lives in is a fascist hellscape. There's ghosts, demons, and spells, but also mental illness, prejudice, and war. My novels are basically Harry Potter meets Flowers in the Attic, and the literal devil occasionally shows up in my work amidst the teen angst and political upheaval to stir shit up. Most horror novels fit into this vein, combining magic with psychological terror. Stephen King's novels, for example, are imaginative and fantastical, but also disturbing and gritty. The spooky season affords me an opportunity to read books which are most alike to my own. I've mentioned before on this channel that my writing suffers if my reading suffers, because I almost need the books I read as fuel to write. When I eventually save the money to publish my novels, I'll undoubtedly sneak them onto recommended fall reading lists, because I feel that autumn is the ideal season to read the books I've written. Therefore, reading magical but creepy novels gives me direct inspiration for my own work. That's not to say I never take inspiration from other genres or more cheerful novels, but the books I read during this season align the most with that which I write. So my writing and reading fuel each other, and my writing, being spooky in nature, is another way by which I can relish this season. Plus, I find books like Ava Reed's Juniper and Thorn, Stephen King's Dark Tower, or Anne Rice's Witching Hour trilogy encouraging, because such novels break the rules. Horror novels have an originality, and writers like Anne Rice and Angela Carter comfort me whenever I start to worry that my books are too weird or disturbing. Spooky season books for me demonstrate that it's okay to take extensive creative risks. Autumn is also the cure cure for a reading slump. Generally, I read more during autumn. At least it feels like I do, because I enjoy reading more on the whole. Again, horror novels are the closest to my sensibilities, combining the seemingly contradictory elements of magic and cynicism. They're mystical but dark, fun but dangerous, fantastical but edgy. They offer fantasy and escape, dragons and witches, but they don't sugarcoat. They also reveal the worst of the world, reveling in the ugly and the freakish, but in a way that, for me at least, feels cathartic. I hate to admit it, but I have a negative streak. It's easy for me to fall into the trap of seeing the worst in the world and its people, especially these days, and I'm apt to ruminate over everything that's wrong. But I find horror cathartic because it acknowledges my fears without rubbing them in my face. It feels like someone is saying to me, hey, things are bad and it's okay to feel that way. But then the evil is overcome. When all the bodies have fallen and the blood has been shed, the heroes still live to fight another day. They might be damaged, but they're alive, And because of their willingness to fight, others will be spared. Many of Stephen King's novels are hopeful, despite the cynicism buried in them. Because good usually triumphs over evil. The werewolf plaguing the small town is defeated by a teenager in a wheelchair. A band of children exorcises it from their local community, sparing their neighbors further horror. And the head vampire is destroyed by a determined writer. In King's novels, we see the impact ordinary people can have, with many of his characters defeating their inner demons too, like addiction. That catharsis helps me to read more because I feel seen. I connect with dark fairy tales and horror novels because that's who I am and what I love. I adore Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Zelda because I love whimsy and fantasy, and I have a big inner child who still watches Kung Fu Panda every year. But at the same time, I'm inexorably drawn to novels like Flowers in the Attic, Lolita, or A Song of Ice and Fire, because honestly, I like stuff that's kind of screwed up. I can probably blame my obsession with Brave Little Toaster as a child for my messed up tastes. Halloween-esque books are simply my favorite kinds of books to read because they satisfy my opposing nature, delighting my inner child while acknowledging my inner cynic. I should probably read books like this year-round, but I fear they'd stop being special if I read them all the time, and it gives me something to look forward to. This one is very specific to me, but I like how fall normalizes my special interests, which are fantasy, mythology, and monsters with an emphasis on vampires and werewolves. Usually, obsession with such subjects is niche, but during spooky season, my obsessions become mainstream. This temporary acceptance or appropriation of the strange might annoy other autistic people, but I love having this brief window to ramble about werewolves and ghosts without it being weird. There's nothing wrong with being weird, of course, but it's nice to feel seen and connect with a wider array of people. I know some of you watching this are autistic, and it's been a pleasure to connect with others who think and feel as I do. But I want to connect with all kinds of bookworms, with people who are neurodivergent, yes, but also with people who are neurotypical or otherwise. Having a BookTube channel is about being part of a community. And the fall season is special because it allows me to be myself and talk about the books and stories I love without limiting myself. Halloween enables me to authentically connect to a wider group of people. More than anything, spooky season is validating because if I talk about some weird ghost story or show off the werewolf tattoo I've got on my arm, other people will actually be interested. When it comes to books and television, I usually favor fantasy, and that's led to arguments in my house when I don't want to watch, say, some romance movie. Halloween is that special time of year where my family doesn't squabble over the TV because what you're supposed to watch happens to be a bunch of creepy fantasy movies. It's the one time of year I can just read fantastical books and watch nothing but movies about goblins and vampires without being judged for it. Because everyone else is watching them too. I can be myself and read and watch what I love best because for 2 short months it becomes cool to be weird. All the neurotypicals jump on the weirdo bandwagon, and I could choose to be resentful, but I prefer to revel in the spirit, in the Tim Burton aesthetics and the unabashed celebration of the bizarre. I love that because it's fall, I get to make videos about books centered on ghosts, demons, and monsters, and others will be excited to discuss them with me. After all, I don't need the validation of others to be happy. But having other people take an active interest in the same things you do can't help but give one a sense of camaraderie, which is so integral to this space. Truthfully, I often feel excluded from the booktube community. Like, no one wants to hear what I have to say because I'm boring or what interests me is unimportant. But during September and October at least, everyone else is on the same page as me, and it's a nice feeling. Autumn, at least for me, feels like a fresh start. It's the season when I feel most inspired. I write more, read more, learn more, and create more. I feel creative and interested and active. It's the time of year when I feel most alive, where I look to the future and all the projects I want to tackle, while also reveling in nostalgia. It's a season where I get shit done, but also the season where I indulge my inner child, watching everything from Harry Potter to Casper, the Spiderwick Chronicles to Scooby-Doo, and The Witch's Ghost. Beyond books, I'm also family oriented. So autumn is the season where I can indulge in everything that's meaningful to me. Fantasy, magical books, and time spent with relatives. Between my fall TBR, walks in the forest, and Thanksgiving, this season is such a sigh of relief. The worst part of any given year for me is the beginning, ironically enough. January and February are my least favorite months because they're depressing. There's no theme to center my life around, there's no holiday to look forward to, and so for the first few months of any given year, I feel aimless and depressed. I get the whole concept of New Year's resolutions, but making fitness goals when it's pissing rain outside seems really counterproductive to me. It's no wonder most people fail their goals, given you're expected to begin your jogging regimen while there's a blizzard outside, or a new diet while your body is physiologically wired to pack on fat in response to the cold. It could be that I simply live in the wrong climate. But where I live, autumn is warm and gentle, while spring is cold and wet. People feel hopeful during January because the days get longer and it warms up. But here in British Columbia, January and February are actually colder than December. We get our worst snowstorms and cold snaps after Christmas. And for those first 2 months, everything is dead and brown. Everything is dead and brown in December too, but you don't notice it because the Christmas lights are kind of pretty. There's just nothing to look at in January. The very environment is as lacking in inspiration as can be. There's just nothing encouraging about ice licks, ankle-length puddles, and expanses of dead grass. Therefore, given how depressing I find the months from January to April, the summer and autumn are cathartic for me. I spend the summer recovering from the months I hate, so that by September, I feel good again and ready to tackle my life, with the leaves changing color and the weather offering an atmosphere. Whether it's sunny and warm or cold and misty, I'm inspired. To quote from Anne of Green Gables, autumn offers good scope for the imagination. I can't tell you how many descriptions are in my novels of fall leaves. I like to think it's because all my protagonists have sensitive artistic temperaments, but the truth is that I just love describing autumn scenes. I love seeing them in movies and reading about them. Autumn is just healing and inspiring to me, even November. But I blame school for causing me to see September as a beginning. With the way school years are arranged, I've long thought of September as this cozy, nostalgic start to something new. Meanwhile, within the school year, January and February serve as the Wednesday of the year, the hump, if you will, to be overcome before you segue into warmer weather and spring break. I didn't mind January and February when they were part of the inconsequential middle, but I hate them as the beginning of the year. I hate having to start fresh and make goals when my environment and my body are actively working against me. If I had my way, New Year's would be on September 1st, and we'd start the next chapter of our lives with variegated vegetation, fields of sunflowers, pumpkin patches, and creepy books. But that's just me. Autumn just soothes me, which makes reading, a large part of my life, easier to get into. Everything about it just makes me feel great. And it goes without saying that I'm going to read more if I'm not depressed. Autumn gives me a sense of purpose and direction, which extends into my videos and how I structure my TBR. You might be a spring stan, but autumn, even including November, will always be the best season to me. Honestly, I don't get why so many people choose dead trees, drowned snowdrops, frigid rain, and damp socks over brisk days, multicolored trees, and Halloween. But maybe I'm missing something. Maybe in other climates, March is actually a pleasant month, instead of one where what few flowers there are get crushed by the torrential downpour. Maybe in other places, the new year doesn't mean wearing a bulky jacket for 4 months straight and not seeing the sun until June. Maybe I shouldn't complain, because it sounds like other people find autumn the gross, freezing, wet season, whereas for me, it's temperate and pretty, with leaves still blazing forth in a yellow profusion as late as November. All I know, based on my experience, is that autumn is the best month or season. And even those booktubers who live in drastically different climates from mine seem to agree. I see those in frigid climes using fall books to genuinely cheer themselves up, while readers from arid regions pepper their shelves with orange leaf displays in spite of it remaining 30 degrees out. The peak of heat for those who don't speak in Celsius. From the cozy vibes and the ushering in of Halloween, to the inspiration to me as a writer and the chance to be myself, and how healing these months are as a whole for me, these are my 6 reasons for why autumn is the best season as a reader. I'd love to hear why autumn is your favorite season, or why it isn't if you're one of those spring stans. Let me know why you love autumn as a bookworm, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching, and happy reading!